Texas football dominated Texas A&M to win the first Lone Star Showdown in 13 years, while fourth-ranked Texas women's basketball continued its winning ways, and Texas volleyball is off to a 6-game winning streak of their own. We'll tackle all of this and so much more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome back to another edition of College Press Box. I'm Ryan Hopper, co-hosting with Devin Serta, who will join us shortly. We'll have a great broadcast tonight, but before we dive in this evening, we want to remind you that College Press Box is brought to you by Cap Metro, Austin's transit system. We connect you to work, school, play, and everywhere in between. Plan your ride to this weekend's game at capmetro.org. On Saturday night, the eyes of Texas and the college football world were on College Station as the Lone Star Showdown returned after 13 years. Let's get into the highlights of what transpired at historic Kyle Field. Kyle Field was rocking for the first Lone Star Showdown in 13 years with a spot to the SEC Championship game on the line. Picking it up on A&M's first drive, the give to Amari Daniels on 4th and 1 goes nowhere. Big stop for this Texas front seven. Plenty more to come from them later. After a Longhorns 3 and out, Marcel Reed escapes pressure and throws downfield, but it was intercepted by Michael Taff. Huge play by the former walk-on to keep the score tied at 0. Then the Texas offense gradually began to get going. Ewers, nursing an ankle injury and not known for his wheels, takes off down the sideline for an improbable 26-yard pickup, but it could have been more if he didn't step out at the 48-yard line. Later in the drive, Arch Manning is in to help pick up a first down on the read option, and he gets it in much more, diving for the pylon for what would be a touchdown after a lengthy replay review. Next Texas possession, Ewers showing off his arm talent, finding Matthew Golden in stride down the sideline for a 44-yard pickup. As you can see on the replay here, the coverage was good, but the throw was even better. Ewers dropping it right in the bucket. Then the Longhorns look to score, and Ewers is looking for Jadon Blue in the corner of the end zone. Initially not ruled a touchdown, but reversed after video replay evidence showed Blue's foot was, in fact, in bounds. 14-0 Texas. Ewers still in rhythm. He's going to go down the sideline to find the true freshman Ryan Wingo for a 35-yard gain before rolling to his right 3 plays later on 3rd and long to find his safety valve, Gunnar Helm, who hurdles a man for a big conversion. The Horns would end the drive with a field goal to make it 17-0 after another stop by the defense. Trey Weiser's going to get to the rock here and finish this run with authority. Weiser had a career-high 186 yards on the ground. Texas offense was cooking with gas until Ewers' passes tipped at the line and intercepted by Will Lee III, who returns it 93 yards for a touchdown as momentum appeared to be shifting in the Aggies' direction. On the next possession, Texas would get in the red zone again, only for Ewers to be stripped by Cassius Howell on an option play. The Longhorn miscues ultimately gave the 12th man hope, but in the end, the 11 on the field just couldn't get it done. A&M drove it all the way to the Texas 2-yard line and had 3 chances to punch it in to make it a 3-point game, but they were stuffed all 3 times. As you can see here, Ethan Berg making the play off the edge on 4th and goal there to all but end the game for A&M. Speaking of Texas's pass rushers, Trey Moore is going to track down Marcel Reed here for a sack fumble recovered by none other than the big fellow Vernon Broughton, who had a 2-sack game as Texas wins 17-7 to secure a rematch with Georgia in Atlanta. While many of us were watching at home or from the stands, our very own TJ Kurlowitz and Tyler Moss were covering the game from the sidelines. Here is their perspective on the Longhorns' statement victory.
13 years of waiting. The last time the Texas Longhorns and the Texas A&M Aggies have played on the same field, LeBron James was just in his 2nd season with the Miami Heat. And now tonight, the Lone Star Showdown has come down all to this, and the result? A Texas win, the head to Atlanta for the SEC Championship next week. In front of a hostile, fine Texas Aggie crowd that was 109,029 strong, the Texas Longhorns found a way to battle through adversity to win a gutsy game by a final score of 17-7. There were some questions regarding Texas starting quarterback Quinn Ewers after suffering an ankle injury last week, but Ewers went out and performed, completing 17 of his 28 passes for 218 yards and a touchdown. Ewers was also helped by backup quarterback Arch Manning, who helped Texas score their first touchdown of the game.
We're all fired up. Couldn't be more proud of how our team handled adversity and how we stayed poised and composed throughout the entirety of the game. And again, it's always a good feeling winning.
Ewers and the Longhorns offense couldn't score in the second half, but thanks to the reliable Texas defense, it didn't matter too much as the defense didn't allow a single point the entire game. The 7 points the Aggies scored came from a pick six in the third quarter.
They've been preparing week after week after week, and they continue to show up, and we continue to find ways to improve and get better. And I thought just defensively tonight was an absolute dominant performance.
The Texas Longhorns finished their SEC season 7-1 in their first year in the conference, which means they have a second date with the Georgia Bulldogs next week in Atlanta in the SEC Championship. Of course, the first date didn't go too well in Austin, happening in October, losing 30-15 to Georgia. But of course, that makes this game much more interesting. Reporting for TSTV Sports at Kyle Field, this is TJ Krolowitz.
Well, it was 13 years in the waiting, but what we got here was near total domination. Although the scoreboard may argue, the eye test and the stat sheet both support it.
Texas outgained A&M in yardage, first downs, and time of possession, three ingredients that typically lead to success. The only thing that kept A&M down but not out was the turnover margin, something that Coach Sarkisian knew.
We had a little bit of bad luck in the red area, with the tip ball that they run back for a touchdown. It was like, are you serious? And then the fumble and a block punt, But outside of that, I really thought we controlled the game and quite frankly, dominated the game.
It was the third quarter where the turnover bug struck. Texas had a 5-minute, 78-yard drive that ended with the pick six, which allowed the Aggie faithful to finally feel like they had a team on the field. It was a classic sudden change moment that struggling teams look for to change momentum. And then Texas came out and had another 5-minute, 12-play drive to motor down to the red zone just to turn the ball over once more. A&M wouldn't capitalize, and it was the next Texas punt that looks like it was going to pin the Aggies deep until it was blocked and set the Aggies up at the 15-yard line. All of this wasn't enough to overcome the dominance of the Longhorn defense, who stood strong the entire game, especially on the late goal line stand after the blocked punt and on the forced fumble on the ensuing drive to seal the game. The defense shone the entire game, with Vernon Broughton having a career night and players like Michael Taff and Ethan Burke playing pivotal roles as well. For Broughton, it was simple.
Don't let them get in the end zone.
The run game also paved the way for the team, with Quintravion Wisner having 186 yards on the night, a career high for him. Sark recognized the impact that the run game had, recognizing the physicality of the competition.
That wasn't a gimmick win. We didn't hit trick plays and things. We lined up and played good hard-nosed football and executed, but we won the game in a physical manner, which is what we know we needed to do in the Southeastern Conference.
With the 17-7 victory here against A&M tonight, Texas has secured themselves a second date with Georgia in Atlanta for the SEC Championship. From Kyle Field, Tyler Moss, TSTV Sports.
That must have been an amazing atmosphere in College Station. Thank you, TJ and Tyler. For more, I'll send it over to the first time to my wonderful co-host, Devaney Serta.
Thank you for that, Ryan. I'm here joined with Nolan Kane, who got to witness the Lone Star Showdown in person. How was the atmosphere in C-Stat?
It was so incredible. The atmosphere was incredible. I mean, the fans are going crazy. I was getting called names, you know what I'm saying? But it was so fun. It was a night I'll never forget, and I'm so grateful I was able to be there.
Oh, and that's always great. And, A&M's always going to act like that. They are a little brother, after all.
Yeah,
While Texas only scored 17 points, the Longhorns' offense was dominating, racking up 461 yards. How was Texas able to move the ball in such a hostile environment as, they always talk about how Kyle Field is one of the hardest places to play at?
Yeah, well, the record might say different at the Kyle Field. But anyways, the Texas offense was dominant. And if it wasn't for those two turnovers from Quinn in the red zone, this game wouldn't have been close. What Texas did in this game is basically what they did to Kentucky. They pounded the rock and dominated the line of scrimmage. A whopping 243 of the 461 yards of offense came from the Longhorns' ground game. This not only helped Texas consistently move the ball, it also helped them control the game from the get-go, and it showed on the stat sheet as Texas was able to keep the ball for 34 minutes and 44 seconds compared to A&M, who had the ball for just over 25 minutes of the game. When Travion Wisner, who's emerged as the top dog in the Texas backfield, claimed most of that yardage, totaling 186 yards on 33 carries for what was a special night for him. If I could, I would do a 30-minute segment talking about Wisner alone. I would. He's been that sensational. The way he runs between the tackles, hits gaps, and shrugs off defenders has been an absolute treat to watch. With him behind this O-line, it's going to be tough for any defense to slow him down. And let's talk about the Texas O-line because they've taken a lot of criticism for the run game, struggling in the first half of the season. But wow, have they flipped the switch. Kyle Flood has these boys rolling over opposing D linemen, and even when future top 10 pick Kelvin Banks went down, backup Trevor Gooseby picked up right where Banks left off. He was so good, I almost forgot Banks was even injured. Oh, and did I mention that they limited Texas A&M to 1 sack the whole game? Yeah, just an incredible performance for the big guys up front. Lastly, I want to give a big shout out to Quinn Ewers, who in my opinion, had his best game of the season, bar 2 plays. However, I'm not going to talk much about Quinn yet because I'll be going more in depth on his performance in just a bit.
You know, you talked about probably doing a 30-minute segment on Travion Wisner. And you have to say, like, he was getting put in the conversation with Ricky Williams. He cemented himself as a Longhorn legend in that game. But I thought the funniest moment, you probably wouldn't have seen it because it was on the broadcast. Yeah. There's a moment of him on the little bike trying to keep him warm, and he just goes, he just looks up, and you can tell that man was gassed. But speaking of that, we've talked about the offense. Let's switch it over to the defensive side. Many people have stated that this is one of the best defenses in the country, and on Saturday night, they held to Texas A&M to 0 offensive points. How did the defense pull this off, and who do you think made the most impact on their performance, and it showed?
Yeah, this Texas defense is special, and I can't find any other word to describe this group of players. That unit has had everything thrown at them. An early drive from Texas A&M into the Texas red zone, what do? They stopped them on 4th down. Offense struggling early, no problem. Michael Taft comes in flying for the interception. Late in the game, the Aggies are on the one trying to make it a 1-score game with all the momentum, all good. They'll just blow up A&M's 4th down play in emphatic fashion. You can throw as many punches as you want at these guys, but the horns will always punch back. Yes, the players on defense are extremely talented, and yes, Pete Kwiatkowski has set up an amazing scheme to put players in the best position to make plays. But what makes this defense so special is their heart. Simply put, Texas defense has 11 dogs on the field at all times. They want it more than everyone else, and they will die on that field if it helps the Longhorns get a win. It's been that way all season, and it was no different on Saturday as they were able to hold the Aggies to 248 yards of offense, force 2 turnovers, and ultimately stop A&M from scoring any points on that side of the ball. When it comes to choosing standout players, it's almost impossible because, like I said, there's 11 dogs on the field at all times. However, if I had to choose 2 players, I'd go with defensive tackle Vernon Broughton and safety Michael Taft. Broughton had 2 sacks on the night and lived in the A&M backfield for almost the entire game. Taft was also absolutely everywhere, getting an interception, 3 tackles, and commanding the Texas secondary all night. Without the performance of these 2 players and the rest of the defensive unit, the Lone Star Showdown could have flipped on its head in the second half. And instead of talking about a historic Longhorns win, I'd be sitting here wondering if the Longhorns would have even made the college football playoff.
You know, it's so interesting what Coach Piquet has built with the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they've always talked about it, how, yes, it is 11 guys, but they play as one and they play together as a unit. And it clearly showed last night and throughout this entire season just how dominant they have been.
Absolutely.
Now, Texas technically hasn't officially punched their ticket into the college football playoff, featuring 12 playoff teams. But before the quest to the national champion title has yet to begin, they'll get a rematch against the Georgia Bulldogs. And it kind of determines who gets the bye week and the seeding for the playoffs. So big implications. What do you see from the Longhorns in the first matchup, and what do you think they need to do a second time around to get a good shot at the title?
Yeah, like you said, Texas has struggled this year, and it stemmed from the bad play on the offense side of the ball, specifically from their quarterback, Quinn Ewers. However, on Saturday night, I saw a Quinn Ewers that I really hadn't seen since the game versus Michigan. He didn't line up the stat sheet with 218 yards passing and a singular touchdown, but on a bad ankle, Quinn commanded the pocket with authority, made great decisions more often than not, and delivered dimes across the field, including by far his best deep ball of the season when he dropped a 44-yard dot right into the hands of Matthew Golden with several Aggie defenders nearby. Quinn also extended multiple plays multiple times with his legs, which you really haven't seen all season. Yes, he did almost cost the Horns the game with 2 really bad turnovers in the red zone, but if you get rid of those 2 plays, Quinn was basically flawless. Yes, those costly plays that have plagued them all season are a big issue, but with the amount of time this Texas offense has, if Quinn can just cut those types of mistakes in half, then the Horns will be A-okay. Look, I've criticized Quinn as much as anyone this season, but what we saw from him against Texas A&M was elite QB play. Time will tell if this performance this week was an anomaly, but if Texas gets this Quinn Ewers for the rest of the season, not only do I think they'll get revenge on Georgia and win the SEC title in their first ever year in the SEC, I think Texas could win the whole dang thing.
You know, that's very interesting that obviously this probably, I think most Texas fans or just like anyone who was watching this week can definitely agree that this was probably Quinn Ewers' best game since the Michigan game. But I don't necessarily think he necessarily played a flaw game. I mean, those 2 mistakes, I don't think they were necessarily on him, but that's a topic for later.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Nolan. Let's go back to Ryan at the desk.
Awesome analysis, Nolan. We'll be talking about Texas women's basketball's undefeated start when we return to College Press Box. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Texas women's basketball is ranked 4th in the nation and just concluded a dominant showing at the Gulf Coast Showcase. Ryan has a special guest to talk about the recent tournament. Toss it over to him.
I'm with Ian Massoud rejoining the show to update us on how Vic Schaefer's Lady Longhorns have fared in 2024. How you doing today, Ian?
Ryan, thanks for asking, and after a much well-needed break, I'm back and ready to talk some women's basketball.
Well, Texas women's basketball had a warm Thanksgiving out in Florida with multiple blowouts. Give us an update on some of the victories from this past week.
Well, the Longhorns returned home as Gulf Coast Showcase champions, ending it with a ranked win. But first, we have to start at the beginning. It all started with a 40-point victory over New Mexico State. Yes, I said 40. It's ironic how football took on Texas A&M and the Lady Longhorns took on the New Mexico State Aggies all in the same week, and both were dominant. Madison Booker started off the game with a turnover but notched the first rebound and points of the game. Booker would have her 4th straight game with double digits, finishing with 21, and the Longhorns would finish having 2 scorers over 20 points. The next day, they would face Butler after the Bulldogs beat Santa Clara, and this one was a blowout too. 5 different players scored double digits, and freshman Justice Carlton led the way with 30 points. The former number 12 player in the class of 2024 seems to be finding a rhythm early in her career as a Longhorn. Carlton was 12 of 15, but this came off of no attempts from 3, and I'd like to see Carlton have a little bit more confidence and put up some more deep shots. In high school, she put up over 1,000 points in one season, and if she wants a permanent load for the Longhorns, she's going to have to be better from 3-point range. And it's going to have to be nailed on the head for her, but the reason the squad has been so successful is their reliance on veterans. It just seems that it allows freshmen like Carlton and Breonna Preston to truly develop and find their own role in the game.
Well, and you mentioned a ranked win for Vic Schaefer's squad over the weekend. How did the Longhorns compete against the West Virginia Mountaineers?
Well, they competed towards the end competed all the way towards the end this entire time, but held a lead the entire time as well. Longhorn fans must have been dying to see some real competition because after 6 blowouts, West Virginia was the first team to not be beat by the Longhorns by double digits. Instead, the Longhorns won by 5 points, but don't let the Longhorns' smallest margin of victory yet fool you. After some early buckets, they established a lead, and West Virginia was fighting back the entire time. They came within 2 points with 1:45 left in the third, but UT would go on a 9-2 run to start the 4th quarter. The latter parts of the game contained a lot of fouls and efforts to get more possessions, but Madison Booker and Kyla Oldeclaire would make their free throws to extend their lead. Aaliyah Moore would have a team high of 20 points, completing 8 of 11 from the field. And Rory Harmon really did fill up the stat sheet completely, and she was notching assists and rebounds and plenty of points in her limited time.
Well, and, important to know about that West Virginia win. That was a previously undefeated West Virginia team. Huge win for the Lady Longhorns. Moving on to this Thursday, Big Schaefer squad takes on Notre Dame, another highly ranked matchup. Give us your take on what the Longhorns need to do for their keys to victory.
Yeah, I hit on this earlier, but the depth of this team really is insane. With bench players filling in well, it allows minute distribution to be made much more easier. And in a dogfight, it gives Texas an upper hand, knowing a player could foul out and be fine. For example, Brianna Preston is a true freshman playing around 10 to 20 minutes a game, and she only has 7 turnovers on the season while scoring 50 points so far. This is the type of reliability the Longhorns need and have. Kyla Oldeclaire has also came off the bench and has been reliable when Taylor Jones has been out. She draws a lot of fouls and can fight for clutch rebounds. Last season, Texas made the Elite 8, and that was without Rory Harmon, their star guard. And she's back, and she really needs to be unleashed versus the Irish. Her distribution of the ball has been off the charts, but her deep shots just haven't really been hitting. While players do find themselves hitting more of a stride later in the season, it's important in a very early game like this versus Notre Dame, in a prove-it match, that Harmon is hitting smoothly on all of her shots. The key to victory will be found in rhythm. Harmon and Booker need to bring their A game when it comes to mid-ranges, and beyond that, Schaefer needs to precisely plan substitutions in order to make most of them, and arguably Texas's bench will play a massive role in this game.
Well, we appreciate your analysis as always, Zion. Back to Devaney at the desk.
Thank you guys so much for that. It should be an exciting top 10 matchup, especially as a Rory Harmon versus Hannah Hidalgo matchup. When we return to College Press Box, Texas volleyball wrapped up its final game of the regular season in a thriller 5-set matchup against Ole Miss on Senior Day. And the focus shifts to the NCAA tournament. Soon, we'll be back after this.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Texas volleyball wrapped up their emotional senior day and are ready for another classic NCAA tournament performance. But do they have what it takes for a three-peat? For more, let's send it over to Devaney to talk some volleyball.
I'm glad to be joined with our very own volleyball analyst, Georgie Ruiz. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing great today. The Longhorns are doing good, so let's just keep on rolling.
Now, how Texas volleyball resilience has shined through during senior day, especially against a win Ole Miss. They went to 5 sets. What happened? What was going on?
Okay, so Texas showcased incredible resilience, rallying from a 13-7 deficit in the 5th set to defeat Ole Miss. The Longhorns fended off 5 match points using a balanced offense and critical defense plays to secure this victory. This comeback highlighted their mental toughness and their ability to adapt under pressure as crucial. This is a crucial school as they prepare for the NCAA tournament. Devin Kahahaway was a key player, stepping up in Madison Skinner's absence due to illness. She delivered a career-best performance with 19 kills and 10 digs while hitting a .312. Her ability to handle increased offense workload was pivotal, especially in the high-pressure moments. Kahahaway's emergence as a reliable option gives this Texas offense a deeper arsenal heading into the postseason play. But another player to look for is Reagan Rutherford, who kept Texas energy going in the 5th set and brought back the momentum needed to win the game. She had 16 kills and brought that extra resilience needed to win. And if you see here, you just see her just bringing the energy back, getting these Longhorns the points to make that 15-point or the 17-point play to win the game.
You know, you talked about a little bit about their mental toughness, and that was something this Texas team needed, especially with the absence of, their top scorer, Madison Skinner. So for Devin Kahahawai to be able to step up, that shows just how mentally tough this team is. Now, Texas volleyball season came a little bit to a rough start when they dropped 3 matches, and it seemed as hell was breaking loose for everyone. And how has this team prepared, or what have they done to prepare for this postseason heading into the NCAA tournament that starts on Thursday?
Well, you know how we said, like, after the shaky start, and we did see Longhorns drop in the nation's polls, Texas has found its rhythm. You know, you saw that Ole Miss game. They've been making these key adjustments, including the emergence of younger players and the consistent offensive execution. This has fueled their resurgence, and the team's 13-3 record in the SEC play and their thrilling senior day win demonstrated their growth, positioning them in the NCAA tournament. And and to succeed in this tournament, you need to have resilience. You need to Texas needs to maintain their balanced offense attack and shore up consistency. While they've shown that they are avoiding slow starts and minimizing errors, this will be critical. The Longhorns depth, highlighted by contributions from players like Kahahawai and middle blockers Marina Secretary and Aiden Ames, they will be an asset as they face tougher competition.
Now, you talked a little bit, once the ball gets rolling for SEC play, how does hosting not only the first, but the second round here at Gregory Gymnasium, how does it benefit them in the long run? A couple seasons ago, they've always seemed to host, and it just feels like the standard. How does that benefit them?
Well, like you said, we've hosted a couple rounds before, but hosting the first and second rounds at Greg gives the Texas a significant advantage. Even though they did have a 3-game losing streak, they shook that off, and the Longhorns thrive in front of their passionate crowd, where the energy and confidence story. You're going to have the students there, you're going to have everybody there. But additionally, staying in Austin eliminates travel fatigue and allows the team to stick to the routines and start this tournament with, a more comfortable environment, giving them an edge to look as they advance to the regional round. But the best thing about these ladies, like we said before, is them playing up until that last set. You saw how they came back from Ole Miss, and Texas had demonstrated remarkable depth this season with players stepping up when needed. Devin Kahawai's performance, breakout performance, and career highs for middle blockers Mariana and Aiden Ames just illustrates the team's just energy and allows them to just be able to push, and throughout injuries or unexpected illnesses that will break this team down, that they will be a tough opponent going to the SEC. And yes, they do have a lot to prove, but I feel like they can go ahead and take it if they just stay where they are right now.
It's funny that you talked about how this team is so resilient. They've done so many things, and I think because they're coming back as back-to-back national champions, they have a bigger target. But being in front of the home crowd, being in an atmosphere you're very familiar with, and Gregory Gymnasium is no joke. It's a tough place to play, especially because you kind of feel like the crowd's kind of atop of you. So I totally agree with that. Thank you so much for that analysis. I'll toss it over back to Ryan.
Thank you, Devaney and Georgie. When we return to College Press Box, we'll take a look at the past week in Longhorn sports and look forward to what's to come. Stick around with us on College Press Box. Welcome back to College Press Box. Let's take a look at this past week in Longhorn sports. Texas men's basketball defeated Delaware State 90-68 on Friday night at the Moody Center to improve to 6-1. The Longhorns now head on the road for a matchup with NC State on Tuesday night in the ACC-SEC Challenge. Tip-off is set for 6:15 Central Time. On Sunday afternoon, Texas will welcome number 25 UConn to Austin. However, the two-time defending national champs have experienced a rough 5-3 start to the season, so the Longhorns will look to spring an upset.
Texas QB1 Quinn Ewers and tight end Gunnar Helm were named semifinalists for the 2024 Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award this past Wednesday. The honor is awarded to the top offensive player in college football, either from or in the state of Texas.
Sophomore Rex Moore of Texas men's swimming took home SEC Co-Swimmer of the Week honors after recording a new American record time in the 500-meter freestyle. Meanwhile, Cooper Lewis won SEC Co-Freshman of the Week as the number 1 Longhorns broke 4 team records at the Texas Invitational. Now, let's take a look at this week in Longhorn sports. As I mentioned earlier, on Wednesday night, men's basketball travels to Raleigh to play NC State in the SEC-ACC Challenge, with tip-off scheduled for 8:15 p.m. on ESPN2. On Thursday, in the women's SEC-ACC Challenge, the Texas women's basketball team will travel to Notre Dame for a 6 o'clock tip on ESPN. And then the NCAA first and second rounds of volleyball versus Texas A&M will be at 6:30 on ESPN+, while on Friday the 6th, the NCAA first and second rounds of volleyball will be against USC or UTA. Should the Longhorns progress, that will be at 6:30, channel to be determined. And this weekend, of course, the much anticipated SEC Championship as the Horns travel to Georgia to play the Georgia Bulldogs. That'll be at 3 o'clock Central on ABC. And on Sunday, women's basketball will travel to Harrisonburg, Virginia to play James Madison for a 1 p.m. tip on ESPN+, while the men, as I mentioned earlier, will play UConn here in Austin with a 4 p.m. tip on ESPN.
And that'll conclude this week's edition of College Press Box. Please make sure to tune into our other sports shows this week, including College Crossfire Wednesdays airing at 9 p.m. and the 1-0 Sports on Friday, now at 11 a.m. Thank you to all of our analysts, everyone in Master Control, and most importantly, our executive producer, Joseph Duffy, and everyone else at TSTV. I'm Debbie Serta. He's Ryan Hopper. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful night.